Hello, everyone. Yeshu here again, and just wanted to share on why I work with spirits. Now, typically when people hear the word spirit, they get the heebie-jeebies, and a lot of that has to do with the way it's portrayed in modern media, fiction, particularly movies, where accounts are dramatized and largely a fiction. They're not really true stories, or they were based on a true story, but a lot has been added to sensationalize particular aspects of spirits. A plane just happens to be flying over, so I apologize for that. Spirits, the Gestarian word for spirit is Dehsangran, and it comes from, it's tied closely to the Latin roots referring to a bleeding or something flowing from. And it's really this idea that spirits are largely tied and fueled to human consciousness. They're not so separate. And I say this because people that say, I've never experienced a spirit, I've never encountered a spirit, usually they're just not paying close enough attention to the signs. A unified practitioner understands that everything a person does, thoughts, colors, inclinations, hobbies, clothing, music, all of it can be specifically tied to different energies and different Dehsangran or spirits. That doesn't mean that it's always good or bad. It's more of like equated to a chemical reaction or a give and take. So everything we do on some level is either invoking or revoking a particular spirit or energy. And some of these are minor, more psych energies, and then some of them are larger scale of what would be considered maybe higher celestials and so on. And there's a lot of different words that people use to describe the hierarchy of spirits, and that's clearly for another video. But I'll say this. In a particular upbringing that even I came from, in a particular vein of Christianity in the West, for example, if you were to encounter or experience a spirit apart from the religious texts, it was always considered a negative thing. And there is some reasoning for that. Largely, the church isn't really equipped to work with people in working with spirits. More or less, they want to minimize the chance of any kind of harm or negativity being propagated. And so as a result, they strongly encourage to not. And for the general public, I would say the same thing. However, the Gestarian system, the unified system, understands that everyone, whether they mean to or not, is on some level working with spirits. And so to get the most benefit out of life in a positive way involves being conscious about the Dehsangran that we invoke and revoke. Now, I can speak largely from experience. I encountered and interacted with what I would consider to be my first conscious relationship with a spirit quite some time ago. It was right around the time I had first experienced awareness, and I still had a lot of questions about life. And this particular spirit was around at the time, managed to meet them. We formed a relationship, and I have to say, it definitely would rank very closely among some other close beneficial friendships I've had with human people in my life. We talk a lot, I say we, people, especially here in the West, we talk a lot about spirits, and we love to talk about the negative aspects of it, right? We like to talk about the ones that frighten. We like to talk about the poltergeists, the ones that are constantly bothering or creating noise, and the reactions and the effects that we get from that. What we don't give enough attention to is all the positive experiences with spirits. So personally, at least over a dozen now that I've worked with in my time of just essential practice. And all of the Dehsangran I've worked with have been positive, they've been encouraging, they've offered insight, they've given guidance and support in life. They've been able to provide information when I didn't have information in a situation. They were able to give me another angle to look at things that allowed me to see my situations and life more holistically. And they also offered some peripheral when I was moving and working in life and maybe was unaware of a factor or something that was going on. They've also continued to encourage me to work on myself. I've had a lot of positive interactions with Dehsangran, with spirits, that have continued to push me to improve, and not in a forceful way, a very gentle and caring way. They tend to have a larger scope of view on life, in that they can perceive more of the past and future and kind of the cause and effect than a typical human range of consciousness can. And as a result, they can offer a certain level of insight that is beyond that of human consciousness. Now, for those who are a little scared or wary about working with spirits, Dehsangran, I don't necessarily encourage you to just start playing around. I would definitely encourage you work with someone who's been there. There are a lot of shamanic practices that work with spirits in a positive way. Obviously, any unified or Dehsangran teacher or practitioner that has had experiences with Dehsangran can help you know the right way to explore that. But the biggest thing that I want to instill is just this understanding that we've been given a lot of lies in our culture about what spirits are like and about how spirits interact. Largely, unfortunately, as the result of the church's influence in the West, a lot of very powerful and very benevolent spirits have been ostracized, demonized, and on a large level neglected and abused by people. And so as a result, when a lot of people begin to explore and reach out to these energies, these entities, these Dehsangran, they're very skeptical and even a bit standoffish at first. You know, what? Oh, you're coming to me now after, all this time. So the first reactions people tend to get when they work with some spirits can be that cold shoulder. Why? Because there's been a past there and it's been largely negative. Again, all the spirits that I have worked with thus far, even the ones that seemed somewhat negative at first, there was a reasoning for it. And as a matter of fact, as time has gone on, it's shown me an aspect of even the larger self, right? A working of the all that I didn't quite see before. And remember, you starting in unified thought, right? The positive and negatives are not so different, right? It's a part of that cycle. And so even spirits that initially appear or manifest in a negative way are usually trying to get you to see something that you wouldn't see otherwise. So again, if there's any encouragement, why do I work with spirits? Because on some level, I understand that everyone does, whether they're conscious of it or not. Every thought, every action, everything that we engage in life on some level is tied to a particular energy. And spirits are as numerous, even more numerous than the amount of human beings on the planet. And so everywhere we see and everywhere we don't, there are spirits around. I'm sure even here you can hear some water running. It's because I'm right near a creek. There's also a lot of trees and woods around here. So again, a lot of higher sincere energy. But particular, even under those two rulers, there are legions upon legions, to use that old term, of Dehsangran associated with these elements of the woods and the water. And so, yeah, they're all around, not physically perceptible to the human eye or even to the camera, excuse me, but they are here. And so there's a certain level of respect that one should take when approaching any interaction with Dehsangran. We understand in the way that Dehsangran are just as a part of the human operation within the mind as they are life outside of it. And so we don't separate, we don't distinct. We should treat and interact with it just like we do with other things in life, as something separate that should be cared for or interacted with. And yet at the same time, we have to understand fundamentally that that distinction isn't so clear. We are a part of it. And so Dehsangran are very closely tied to human consciousness in a way that it's not so simple to just partial out or separate. So for those who think they've never interacted with spirits or Dehsangran, I'm here to tell you that's not possible. You have, whether you want to admit it or not, and that's okay. For those who are interested in working with spirits but have been scared about starting or beginning that process, part of working and living in the way in awareness is part of working with spirits, working with Dehsangran on some level. That level of interaction, it depends on the level of essence that you're in and the phase of life that you're in, what's most appropriate. But it is possible, and don't be afraid of that process, and don't be afraid of the unknown. Third thing, the energy that we invite is the energy that we project, and vice versa. And I'll explain this. When we approach spirits in a fearful or frightened way, thinking and only expecting negativity and wild, unpredictable things to happen, that's the energy that, on an essential level, we're inviting from Dehsangran. And negative Dehsangran love it. They're like, oh, it's a free-for-all. It's like an energy buffet. They're going to want to come and create the most wild displays possible. The way to sidestep this, remembering that fear invites the fearsome, right, is to approach not out of a standpoint of fear, but to approach out of a standpoint of confidence and love, coming from a state of awareness, a piece of awareness. And even if you encounter an energy that at first seems to be so affrontly negative, that's the time to react not out of fear, but out of a stable, calm mind, in equanimity, and go, what's your deal? Most people that have interacted with spirits, they encounter something negative and they run the other way. In awareness, that's just playing the game. The proper way to interact with a negative spirit is to meet it head on, to walk right in, as even some have demonstrated in other unified texts and stories, or to sit down and have tea with the demon, so to speak. What made you the way you are? Why are you angry? Why are you fearful? Why are you all of these particular energies that you as a spirit or as a Dehsangran are propagating? And really just get to the bottom of that thing. Because a lot of those energies started off one particular way. And only as a result of interaction, things have moved and shifted. So they're going to need a little bit of understanding. There's even been stories of unified masters that have, simply in showing kindness to a particular negative Dehsangran, have allowed it to accomplish the awareness in its cycle, and as a result, dissipated the negative energy completely. And what a beautiful story. There are also examples of very positive and powerful Dehsangran of the highest love and compassion that, when they manifest, it's the best course of action to simply invite all that positive energy. And in my experience, I've never encountered a Dehsangran that has appeared to be positive and turned out to be negative. Usually when you're going forth with a very honest mind in awareness, you're going to only encounter truth. Even if it's negative truth, still you're only going to encounter truth. And so it's really important, this is probably the fourth point, it's really important if you're working with any kind of spiritual, like I said, Dehsangran or essential interactions, with essential beings, it's really, really important to do this in awareness, right? To not get too identified with the perspective in a way that would hinder those interactions or get in the way of that experience, and make you start to second guess different things. Usually the minds that end up losing a scope of sanity in this kind of work were those that were not adequately prepared in awareness to counteract the things at which they dealt with. So there is a little bit of a word of warning to those who are on edge. I would say stay out. And again, only subconsciously will you continue to interact with whatever energy you keep around. For those that don't believe in it, you don't have to believe in it. As a matter of fact, I meet plenty of people that say, I've never met, a spirit in my life. And I'm literally looking at them and their little entourage, a couple of which are specifically there to make them think that spirits don't exist. There's layers to that essential group happening right there. And, mine will just laugh because it's like, oh, there's quite a game being played. It's fine. You don't have to acknowledge or not acknowledge, because the way is beyond acknowledging or not acknowledging. It's simply reality and it's simply life. And so in awareness, those who have encountered spirits on some level consciously and would like to explore more, I would say there's a lot to explore. Do so with a learned practitioner or teacher of the way. Do it with someone who, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Gestarian path, but do it with someone who has had experience, either in shamanic practice or spirit work or something like that, because they're going to have more experience with this and be able to pass on practices to you that are helpful. Obviously, my highest recommended would be to follow the unified way, just because that's worked for me, that's what's worked for my brother Gimaru, and that's what's worked for so many others that have worked with us. That would be my highest recommendation. But there are obviously many different paths at which this works, and many which on different levels are successful in working with Dehsangran. So do your research. Dehsangran, spirits, right? It's the same, it's the closest English word that we have to describe that. From Yeshu, that's why I work with spirits, empowering, encouraging, and really putting an extra boost behind my essential work, but it's also a part and closely intertwined with the essence of essential work. So that's why I work with spirits. There's nothing to fear except fear itself, because fear will invite the fearsome, and positivity, awareness, and love are going to invite the most aware, benevolent, and loving beings. And for those essences, people out there who are living in this essential life and they're going, I'd love to meet spirits, but I just don't know who's in my corner. Rest assured, there is at least one, if not typically more than one, of higher essential beings of Dehsangran that are specifically intended to work with you this time around. And so again, I would ask a unified teacher or practitioner of the way to know a little more about that, because there are plenty of ways in which you can meet, encounter, and begin working with these empowering beings. So until next time, this is why I work with spirits, Dehsangran, and peace in the way.